So, I saw How to Train Your Dragon 3D. Which one? Yes. The original, as well as the live-action remake. And the original, as you can see here, is on this early Blu-ray 3D promotional disc from Samsung. It's just a single disc only, the Blu-ray 3D disc. So I didn't look into the backstory of what item this came with, or perhaps it was mailed away for it, I'm not sure. So anyway, Disney has made a market out of making live-action remakes of animated classics, and DreamWorks is now going into that field. Except How to Train Your Dragon, the original, was released in 2010, and the remake is now in 2025. That's only 15 years. That's not a huge amount. And the fact that there's almost some nostalgia accompanying it is, I find kind of bizarre. You should not be having this nostalgia in your late teens. And that's going to be pushed even further when Disney remakes Moana, which is going to be a less of a time span than that even, between the animated original. That being said, I'm not against remakes. They can be done in many different ways. Some of them can be complete reinventions. In fact, that used to be more of what was expected, to do something original with it. But in recent times we've gotten some remakes that fall more into the category of paint by number, recreation. For instance, what we got with The Lion King, what we got with How to Train Your Dragon, it's so extremely similar. Of course, they did make small changes here and there throughout, like is bound to happen, but it's so minimal. This is basically the same story and basically no real surprises. I say think of it this way: stage shows. Like you got a play on Broadway that gets performed multiple times or has different iterations. They might tweak a little thing here and there, or bring a revival cast, remake it over different decades, and that's viewed as completely acceptable. So maybe think of it that way, remaking movies in that sense, even if they're not complete overhauls. It's just slight tweaks here and there, doing something different with it. View it as a stage play and suddenly it's all okay. The original was good. I hadn't seen it until just this month. I bought this disc used very cheaply, and it had been in my stuff for a while. I had never gotten a chance to watch it. And I still haven't watched the 2 sequels, so I'll be getting around to that at some point. But I at least wanted to watch the original before I watched the remake, and it was quite good. It wasn't as obnoxious as other DreamWorks animation titles. This was more dramatic, story, and character focused. The animated version did have a little bit of an edge that you could tell it was a DreamWorks movie, but I guess that taste will vary. But the live-action version smoothed that out a little more. It still had a bunch of comedy, and the comedy landed well, and I thought it was pretty good. But the live-action version was able to, I think, more effectively handle the dramatic elements and handle it even better. I also find it interesting how the non-human stars are handled in the animation, because of course that stays animated. Only the people are live action. Like for instance with Lilo and Stitch, Stitch remained animated, this time computer animation, but he still looked very similar, almost identical to the hand-drawn animated version. And similar here, the dragon, Toothless, he looks very similar to the one from the original movie. Still very cartoonish, but now more photorealistic. One of the leads is played by Nico Parker, who is the daughter of Thandie Newton, and she also was in another live-action animated remake, which was when she was a kid in Dumbo. And the lead character of Hiccup is basically a newcomer to acting. He's only been in a few things so far, and he did a pretty good job. He correlated both in appearance and demeanor pretty well with the animated version. The 3D was very good. If you are kind of on a 3D low after seeing Lilo and Stitch and the budget conversion job that they experimented with for that. Basically for Lilo and Stitch they hired out a group of conversion artists that use largely artificial intelligence with manual fixes, but they did nowhere as good of a job as what iPop 3D would have done with their Blu-ray titles. So very mild 3D, lots of errors, just sort of phoning it in, just to say it's in 3D basically. So hopefully the price isn't so significant, the price difference, that'll become a thing in the industry just to save a relative few bucks. Hopefully that won't become a thing. Regardless, the 3D in How to Train Your Dragon was very good, just like it was in the original. There's not I wouldn't say really any major pop-outs. There are things in negative parallax, but it's nothing like extended or obvious. Lots of particle effects in the front of the screen. That's awesome, like fire, water, mist, all kinds of stuff that literally puts you in the environment with the layering, and it's medium to strong, and I'd say emphasis on the strong. I didn't notice any errors either, even when there's naturally hard to convert items like chains with holes in each piece in front of the screen. That all was converted perfectly. And even the end credits were a pleasure to watch because they were live action aerial shots of beautiful scenery with the land and the water, and rustic lettering. And sometimes some of the ground and the cliffs that were panning by were in negative parallax, and I thought, oh, is it going to conflict with the lettering? But no, they made sure it never did. It came up close, touched it even, but they were conscious to have no depth contradictions, but it came very close and it was strong, and even the end credits were a pleasure to watch. And as with any 3D movie, I'd recommend, if you can, to see it in a premium large format theater. Of course, it can be fine if you see it in a regular standard theater with a standard RealD 3D showing, but more often than not, the quality of that can be unpredictable. It's definitely going to be, by its very nature, lower brightness, lower resolution, less proximity to the screen, so you can see less of the detail, less immersive. But premium large format, that's definitely the way for any, but especially for good 3D movies like this one. And what do we mean by that? IMAX comes to mind, obviously, but that is not at all the only choice here. In fact, IMAX can be less consistent with quality because there are many older retrofitted IMAX theaters with xenon projection, which is less clear, less sharp and crisp, far less bright, more muted colors. So if you do IMAX with laser 3D is what you want. But there are other options that are just as good, sometimes better. They could be Regal's RPX. They could be Cinemark XD. There's Apple Cinema's ACX. So you just have to do your research and check out the different branding of premium large format theaters out there. I would add Dolby Cinema to that list, but in my area at least, they seem to be lacking on any 3D showtimes for anything at all, except the exceptions would be Avatar, but that was years ago. But in this movie, especially the flying scenes on the dragon going up in the sky, going at water level, flying along, the water's right at the level of the screen and going beyond it, that's extremely immersive. Personally, I saw this in Regal RPX, so if you want to get a free month added to your unlimited membership, which is great if you have a bunch of movies you want to see in this and coming months, and that promo code for the free month is in the link below. And that brings us to Pixar's Elio, but that's for the next episode.